How do we look? Pretty?
Pretty.
Hey guys, it's Jeff from San Diego Seed Company. Today we're going to talk about thinning, but something caught my eye over here that I'm just going to have to nibble on. You know, when you have kids and a garden, sometimes you don't even get to enjoy the fruits of your labor, pun intended. So look at that strawberry. Oh my gosh. If you guys have never grown strawberries, grow them and try them because they're way better than store-bought. I'm going to do my best Denethor with a strawberry instead of a tomato. That is delicious, guys. Okay, give me a second while I chew, then we're going to talk about thinning. John said that he's got a much better Denethor than me. Let's see.
Well, little straub tip. Leaves curling up, it's ready to eat. That guy's so gross, I hate him, you know. Faramir's riding off to battle to get wounded by the orcs. Man, the Battle of Pelennor Fields after that, though, one of the most epic scenes in all of cinematic history. If you are listening
I think
to
I
these
just
rambles,
heard everyone click off of this video.
Yeah.
Yeah, nerd alert. Okay, why are we doing a video about thinning? Here's why. When you plant seeds directly, it's not a good idea to say, all right, I'm growing carrots. Carrots need to be 4 inches apart, so I'm going to put one seed every 4 inches, and I'm going to save all my seeds, and I'm going to be able to use them next year, and it's going to be great. I'm going to save so much money and time. What actually happens in real life, if you were to do that, is a roly-poly is going to like roll around and knock it over and kill it, or an earwig is going to bite it, or there's 10,000 things that can go wrong in the garden. So what we do to get around that is we oversow. But what happens then is you're just overcrowding your plants. If I were to let these carrot plants just stay like this and grow to their final maturity, they are not going to get big. If you look really closely, this right here looks like one carrot plant. But if you really get down in here, we've got 1, 2, 2. Right next to each other, but they're so close to each other you can't tell. So that is the first tip of thinning, is you have to get down and dirty and close to the soil and find the base of the plant and get it down to its first thinning distance. Now what we're not going to do is get to its final spacing on this first thin, because when they're this size, the same thing that can happen when you've planted them and they're just sprouting up can also happen when they're this small. You got a skunk come through and he's looking for grubs and he digs them up. I don't have to list all the things that go wrong in the garden. You guys know. But if you were to thin to the final spacing at the beginning and then something happens to that one plant that's 4 inches apart, you're going to have a bad time. So what we love to do, especially with carrots, is thin them once, get them relatively close to their final spacing. You're going to let them grow for a few weeks, maybe even a month, till they get a lot bigger. And then the beautiful thing about that, I'm going to show you right next door.
There's Jeff in the garden.
As you can see here, we've got another row of carrots, but they are a little further along. I don't have the exact dates, but I would probably say 2 weeks, 3 weeks further. But if you look, they're still too close together. So what I love to do before that final spacing is let them get big enough. Don't do it too soon. Let them just simmer in there. You're not doing anything bad to the carrots. They still have plenty of soil and nutrients and water to grow. But you are going to have to take them out at some point. So wait as long as you can, and when you take them out, you get this little tiny baby carrot. And what's great about that is you can still eat it. Go in and clean it and you can still eat it. I actually did this last night with a salad, and when they're this small, the flavor is just tremendous. It's better than as they get bigger. But you wouldn't want to do this with a whole row because it's just a waste of time, in my opinion. You want to get big, long carrots. The flavor is still better than store-bought, but there's something about this flavor that is magnificent. Okay guys, I know that thinning is one of those things that people hate to do. Nobody likes to kill plants. It's not killing plants. Okay, it is killing plants, but what it's doing is it's giving your plants enough space so that they can grow to maturity and you can get the best bang for your buck, because if you try to save all the plants' lives, every plant is going to suffer. So pay attention to the spacing and you're going to do a lot better. Now let's go inside and talk about thinning in just a little bit of a different setting. Okay, so I'm in my office where my grow lights are, and in front of us we have a tray of tomatoes. Now earlier when we were outside, I talked a little bit about when you sow heavy-handedly, let's call it. The reason you do that is you don't know if they're all going to come up. You don't know if things are going to take them down once they've come up. So you sow a little more than you actually need. The same goes for when you're starting seeds in trays or cells. Here you can see that we have 3 little tomato plants in one cell. Now if I were to let all 3 of these go, they're not going to do very well. They're not going to get up to the size that they need to be to go out into the garden. Okay, so with this specific pot, I was lucky enough that all 3 of my seeds came up. With these, I can let this grow for maybe a few more days. The same concept applies that we talked about outside, inside. If I were to, at this point in their life, trim them down to only 1 per pot, something might happen to that one. Even though we're in a controlled setting, I may, I don't know, forget to water one day and they start to wilt. All kinds of things can happen to plants. So I recommend maybe let them get their first set of true leaves or 2 sets of true leaves. At some point you are though going to need to trim down to 1 per cell. So let me show you the 2 ways to do that and the 1 way that I prefer over the other. Now again, I'm going to do this now just for the sake of the video, but with just the cotyledons out, you're not going to want to do this yet. You're going to want to give it some time. The first way is to just pull them out. And that came out pretty easily, and that's totally fine. When they're this small, that is an okay method. But as they get older, the roots are going to get intertwined, and by pulling one plant out, you're disturbing the roots of all the other plants. So here's the method that I like. You're going to get into your wife's medicine cabinet and get into her like nail bag. Every woman has one of these, and you're going to find the littlest pair of scissors that you can find. And don't tell her, I promise, wash them afterwards. She'll be none the wiser. You're going to go in here and look for the best looking plant. Now, a lot of you are saying, what do you mean the best looking plant? I don't know, it's a feeling. If there's browning leaves, get rid of that one. Sometimes these cotyledons will come up and there's just a deformity in the way it grows and there's a little notch out of it. I get that one out. I'm not a scientist. I do know from experience that anytime that I've picked a plant, it does really well. So I'm going to leave that up to you guys in choosing which plants you keep and which you don't. Just use common sense. If it looks sickly, get it out of there. All that was kind of a joke, but there is one thing that I would recommend you guys look at, and that is legginess. When you're growing under grow lights, the lights aren't as powerful as the sun. If you don't get the plants right next to the light, they're reaching for the light and they get leggy. Sometimes you'll see one that's short and one that's long. I would always clip the longer one because you're going to get less legginess. Now, as always with these videos, I could go on and on and on. I just thought of something with tomatoes. Legginess doesn't matter that much because you can bury the stem and the stem will root out and you have actually a stronger plant. Just use your best judgment and just do what feels right. The way that you're going to get the other plant out is you're just going to find it and clip it. And I usually just leave it in there. It's going to rot. You're good to go. Now here's something free. I know this is a thinning video, but since I'm here, I just thought of it. This size pot is 32 per tray. The standard size for a tray is 20 inches by 10 inches. A lot of you may be starting in trays that have 50 or even 100 or 64. I would say anything smaller than this at 32, you're going to want to pot up your tomatoes before putting them out into the ground. The reason I love 32s is you can get them up to the full size to go into the garden without having to pot up. You don't run into space issues, root detanglement issues, breaking up roots, all the things that can go wrong when you pot up. Go with trays that have 32 cells. That's a little bit about thinning. While I'm giving out some free information, for those of you who don't like thinning because you don't like killing plants, I highly recommend getting into the compost game. You can see behind me, I can't because I'm looking right in the sun, but we have our compost bins behind us. When I take those plants out that aren't going to grow to maturity, I put them in the compost and makes me feel a little better because I know that that is going to break down, it's going to go into my soil, and it's not leaving the property. We get to use that for the next season. So if you don't like thinning, I recommend composting. So since we're a community, we want to hear from you guys. Those of you who hated thinning but now do it on the regular, what got you over the hump? What allowed you to actually thin and not feel bad anymore? Maybe you still do feel bad. How do you get through it? Drop it in the comments. We want to hear.